Thank you for being here. It's a great day to be in Roanoke, and a great day to be a Roanoker. How about a round for that idea? I'm Cyrus Pace. I'm the executive director here at Jefferson Center. Of course, we're one of the sponsors of making sure that this happened, and also City of Roanoke and Local Colors. So how about a round for all those folks to put this together? So I hope this isn't your first time in Chapman Performance Hall. This is, from my perspective, one of the best reasons to live in Roanoke, Virginia. To have a true community theater that does the things that we do here is a very, very big deal. I've seen some of my favorite shows of my whole career, my whole life in this venue. So if this is your first time, please come back and see some of the things that we do. I'd also like to mention, it'd be crazy if I didn't, that we're in a campaign right now to ensure that we can continue to do this great work, like nights like this and other things happening in the building. So if you haven't had a chance to dial in on the campaign, I hope you'll do so. I do want to remind everyone that flash photography can be hard on the people around you, so if you could refrain from doing that, it would be awesome. And otherwise, the next step is to introduce Jay Saunders, who's the president of the Board of Local Colors. Please welcome.
Can we have another round of applause for Cyrus Pace? In fact, for all the good people at the Jefferson Center, without whom this evening would not be able to take place, they've done an enormous amount of work, and it wouldn't be happening otherwise. We're very grateful. Thank you all for coming out tonight for our event, An Evening with George Takei on Inclusion and Diversity. My name is Jay Saunders, and I am the president of the Board of Directors for Local Colors. For over 25 years now, Local Colors has served the Valley as a not-for-profit organization whose primary function it is to celebrate the diversity represented by our neighbors right here in the Roanoke Valley. The people of this city come from over 100 different nations, and we are very proud to be part of a community as cosmopolitan and diverse as Roanoke, Virginia. But last November, our mayor, David Bowers, issued a proclamation that inadvertently caused many people to say we were not a welcoming community at all. The mayor always endeavored to represent the city in a favorable light, and he has been a great advocate for both Local Colors and the immigrant community for decades. And so it was a surprise to many when he suggested that it was too dangerous for Roanoke to offer aid to the Syrian refugees fleeing civil war. ISIS had said that they would hide terrorists among the refugees, and many of us became so concerned for our safety that we lost all compassion for these poor people. In many Roanokers' minds, these people somehow deserved less sympathy than others might. Many people agreed, and we had a substantial segment of our population that wanted to turn away the refugees of war, fearing that they might be terrorists. The proclamation also alluded to the internment camps employed by the United States government during World War II to imprison Japanese American citizens. And it was this aspect of the proclamation that caught the attention of Mr. George Takei. As a child, Takei had lived with his family in these internment camps, and so he can speak to the reality of this shameful period in American history. Mr. Takei's comments on social media then got even more people talking about Roanoke, and this is how Roanoke City government and Local Colors got involved. Our city manager, Chris Morrill, and the city's communication and media officer, Melinda Mayo, and I all read the words of George Takei. Independently, we all started working on how we might show the world a better side of Roanoke. And the city manager's office reached out to Local Colors, and we began making plans together to invite Mr. Takei here. We thought, what better way to showcase Roanoke as a welcoming community than to show Mr. Takei himself our charm and hospitality. The mayor has long since apologized for his words, and of course we now know that most of the Syrian refugees who will be coming to the United States have not only lost their homes, but they have been waiting in Turkey and Jordan for up to 2 years in relocation camps. The refugees that come to the United States from Syria will have endured some of the most stringent vetting processes of any nation in the whole world. These people are not our enemies, but they are the enemies of ISIS. And many of these people, should they choose to return to Syria, would become the targets of ISIS themselves. And so we are here tonight to say with certainty that the good people of Roanoke welcome immigrants from all nations to come and live with us, to become part of our community. We especially sympathize with the victims of war, with the refugees of war, and regardless of their country of origin. It is our hope that the immigrant community, including the well-established Syrian population of Roanoke, will continue to look to Roanoke City government and local colors as trusted partners in our mutual efforts to build a better community for everyone. But it needs to be said, too, that beyond our little valley, the United States has moral and legal obligations to take in our proportionate share of war refugees. In the wake of the horrors of World War II, America joined in an international treaty called the 1951 Refugee Convention. It provided for the refugees of war-torn regions to be taken in by participating nations. In 1967, that treaty was amended to include not just the nations that participated in World War II, but all of the nations of the world. This treaty is still of profound importance to our lives in 2016, and it is a profound failing of the American media that no one has been talking about the stabilizing effect the 1951 Refugee Convention has had on international politics. Tonight, we hope to set the record straight on this and a number of other fronts. We are honored that George and his husband, Brad Takei, have traveled such a great distance to be here with us. Mr. Takei will share some remarks with you, the audience, and afterwards you are all invited to participate in a question and answer session wherein you may ask Mr. Takei anything you like. After the Q&A session is over, the audience is invited to make their way to the atrium, where the copies of George Takei's book, To the Stars, will be for sale, along with the soundtrack to his Broadway musical, Allegiance. If you purchase one of these books or CDs, you can get it autographed by Mr. Takei tonight and have a chance to meet him in person. Proceeds from the sales of the books and the CDs are all going to help the work of Local Colors. And I'll warn you, too, that Mr. Takei's book, To the Stars, is actually out of print, and so tonight is a rare opportunity indeed. We're just about ready to begin the show, but before we bring out our most honored guest, we are proud to have a few of our own locally elected officials. They're going to help get us started, and our first speaker tonight is Delegate Sam Rasool. He is the delegate representing the 11th District of the Virginia General Assembly. Sam grew up in the Roanoke Valley, and he is a graduate of Roanoke College. In fact, Roanoke has been a focal point for his family and his entire professional career. But it was not so long ago that his family were immigrants to the United States from the Middle East. And so Sam understands the struggle many immigrants face. Let's welcome Sam to the microphone with a big round of applause, and he can tell you more.
Good evening, everyone. How many of you were at the Real Roanoke rally last November? You remember what we did then? We split the room in half. This side's We Are, and this side is the Real Roanoke. Let's see if we can do it. We are Real Roanoke. Now, last November, you all were much better than you just did right now. This is what you sounded like last November. We are the Real Roanoke. We are the Real Roanoke. So let's try it one more time. We are the Real Roanoke. We are the Real Roanoke. Oh, man, that's fantastic. Give yourselves a round of applause. The hashtag Real Roanoke rally last November was meant to do three things. We wanted to celebrate our diversity, the 105 nationalities that we have represented here in Roanoke. That is largely celebrated, of course, through Local Colors, a.k.a. the Pearl Foo. Pearl Foo, let's give her a big round of applause. Number two, we wanted to counter ignorance and let everybody know that there has never, since 2001, there has never been a terrorist attack by a refugee. And so it didn't really make much sense when we're saying we're going to keep these refugees out when we've never had an attack. That was number two. And then number three, we wanted to have fun, and we did so by having, those of you that were in attendance know how much fun we had. We had the largest paper, rock, scissors contest that Roanoke has ever seen. So our real enemy is countering ignorance. In 2008, I ran for Congress, and here in the western half of Virginia, you can just imagine a guy last name Rasool, some of the things that we hear. So I was knocking on this young man's door, and I started telling him, I'm running, I'm on the ticket with President Obama, and I eventually said, okay, I'll vote for you, but I ain't voting for Obama. And I said, why? you know he's Muslim. So, awkward pause. I tell him, well, actually, he's not Muslim. He's a good Christian man, but I'm Muslim. And we had a great conversation and found out that, oh, by the way, we are not so different. The way some folks are talking, though, it's like you don't even know who you can trust, right? You know, after listening to, Senor Trump and Senor Cruz, I don't even feel safe around myself anymore. I don't know what I'm capable of minute to minute. But here in Roanoke City, all you have to do is look at your city council and understand and appreciate the diversity that you have on city council. Men, women, black, white, Jew, Arab, millennial, almost millennial, fans of the Washington football team, and they even let a Cowboy fan become mayor of this city. Yes, I went there. But you all even went so far to elect as your state legislator somebody that looks like me. And it's pretty neat to be in elected office in the most ethnically diverse country in the world. It's really an honor. 2 things we need to do to counter ignorance. Remember these 2 points that helped me. Everyone is fighting a battle that you know nothing about. So be kind always. Now, and those of you that are full of spirit, that are spiritual, I think the boldest profession of your faith is finding the courage to be able to love your enemy, no matter who that may be, even if you have feelings about Senor Trump. If you can find it in your heart to love every single one of God's creations, that really shows what kind of a person you are. So tonight we have someone who's very special visiting Roanoke. We're very excited. He represents and has represented something that so many people love all across America. I think you know what I'm talking about. We have the proud champion of the quesalupa here tonight. I don't know if you've seen those Taco Bell commercials, George, but we have. So let's end this by one more time. We are the real Roanoke. We are the real Roanoke. Thank you very much.
Let's do it again. Another big round of applause for Delegate Sam Rasool. Thank you, Sam. And I know everybody wants to see George, so we're making this quick, but we have to announce that we are very, very excited and offer our congratulations to Vice Mayor-elect Anita Price. She is our next speaker, and Anita is the first African-American female to ever be elected to Roanoke City Council. She was also there at the beginning when Local Colors very first got started some 26 years ago. She was walking down the street with Pearl Fu in the very first Parade of Nations ever. Anita has over 35 years' experience as an educator and guidance counselor, and she is a staunch advocate for the children and families of the Roanoke Valley. We're very excited to have her weigh in on all of this, and we want to welcome her to the stage. Let's have a big round of applause for Vice Mayor-elect Anita Price.
Thank you, Jay. Oh, my stars. And that was actually the very first remark I made when I heard that my longtime idol, Mr. George Takei, was coming to visit Roanoke. This is such an honor, and I, for one, am so thrilled to welcome all of you to the Star City of the South. Now, as Jay mentioned in my introduction, my daughters and I were among the very first to participate with our very dear Pearl when she first began Local Colors. And just as Local Colors has grown from a representation of only 4 countries, so has the diversity of Roanoke continued to grow. In the late 70s, when my young family and I relocated here, I will tell you, it was a very different looking place. Describing Roanoke as being diverse and having a diverse population is not the description I would have given it. But today we have representation of many nationalities, religions, ethnic, gender, and cultural groups. We are so many shades of color, and we have truly become a melting pot. And I understand that, Mr. Takei, you visited the Harrison Museum of African American Culture just yesterday. Well, unfortunately, my husband and I could not be there because we were detained at some other ongoing events. And for those of you who don't know, the Harrison Museum is now located downtown in Center in the Square. This new location is just one of many indications that Roanoke is now not only accepting as a community, but is also willing to accept change. I'm so proud of my city, my hometown, I call it now. And I am thankful to call this home where my children and grandchildren can have opportunities to live, work, and play in an inclusive environment. Now, it's important to note, are we where we want to be? No, not yet. But thank God we're not what we used to be. I am so proud of our beautiful city where we learn each day from each other and demonstrate the importance of remembering the Sankofa bird. The Sankofa bird is a symbol from the people of West Africa. It means to reach back and gather the best of our past, that our past has to teach us in order that we can reach our full potential as we continue to move forward. So may we all remember those teachings of the Sankofa bird, that we indeed continue to move forward, to reach back, bring what we need so that we can continue to move forward. May God continue to richly bless us all. Thank you and welcome again.
Thank you, Vice Mayor-elect Anita Price, and congratulations on your recent re-election to City Council. Thank you for your many years of service to the community. Now, is everybody ready for the big event? I think you've waited long enough. Without any further ado, let's shake the rafters with our applause and welcome Mr. George Takei to the floor.
Oh, my. Thank you for that fantastic welcome. I have fallen in love with Roanoke. Yesterday and today, I've seen the great welcome, and now I hear the welcome to the city, and I feel like I'm really a part of Roanoke, Virginia. Jay Saunders, who's been the master of ceremony, was also someone who greeted me yesterday, that long 4-hour drive from McLean, Virginia to here, and he told me all about the city. He is a great salesman for the city, and I think I know pretty much a lot about this city. Jay has introduced me to so many people and so many areas of this city that I feel like I've really had a good appetizer to this city, and I want to come back sometime for the entree. And I want to thank the elected officials who've joined us tonight for their welcome, and I'd like to add my congratulations to Anita Price for her re-election and becoming in charge of the vice in the city. I sort of suspect it's in good hands. And Sam Rasool, with whom I had lunch this afternoon, he represents so much of the energy and the youth and the vitality of this city. And I really feel very much welcomed. And to certainly Jay, who is the president of Local Colors, which is hosting this visit here, and his enormous energy in making this all happen. So to Local Colors and to Jay Saunders, thank you very much. I came here because of a statement made by Mayor Bowers some time ago, which caught my attention. He's become quite famous for that statement. You all know about it, about securing Roanoke and not having refugees from war-torn areas of the Mideast come to this city. And then to justify that, he made a rather misinformed statement about he called it the sequestering of Japanese nationals. And I felt that I needed to enlighten him. At that time, I happened to be doing a Broadway musical on the internment of Japanese Americans, and I thought that Mayor Bowers attending the show would give him some information on that chapter of American history. And so I extended an invitation to come to New York and see Allegiance as my guest, he and his wife, a charming wife from Honduras named Margarita. I can remember that name because I think of that delicious drink. I began a conversation, not only by inviting him, but I've had telephone conversations with him and email exchanges with him. And I came to know Mayor Bowers quite well. I hadn't met him yet, but based on those telephonic conversations. And he's a good guy, and certainly with an open mind. But he said that he's kept very busy by you people of Roanoke, and he's anchored down here. And in return for my invitation, he extended me an invitation to come here. And I thought, what a wonderful opportunity to find out something about Roanoke. And so I accepted, and here I am. I wanted to share, not only with him, but with all of you here, something of American history that's still too little known, but a very formative and important part of who I am. I am the grandson of immigrants from Japan who came to California around the turn of the last century. My mother was born in Sacramento. My father was a San Franciscan. They met and married in Los Angeles, and my siblings and I were born in Los Angeles. We were Americans, part of the Southern California community. However, When Japan bombed Pearl Harbor on December 7, 1941, and plunged the world into a second world war, our lives changed calamitously, the lives of Japanese Americans. Suddenly, overnight, we were looked at with suspicion and fear and outright hatred simply because we happened to look like the people that bombed Pearl Harbor. We had ugly words spat at us. The word Japanese shortened to a 3-letter word. It was painful and hurtful. But despite all that, young Japanese Americans, like all young Americans, rushed to their recruitment centers to volunteer to serve in the military. This act of patriotism was answered with a slap on the face. They were denied military service and categorized as enemy non-aliens. It was outrageous. Young people who were volunteering to fight for this country, perhaps even die for this country, and to call them the enemy was irrational and crazy and insulting. But that outrage was compounded by the second word, non-alien. What is that? A non-alien is a citizen defined in the negative. They took the word citizen away from us. We became enemy non-aliens simply because of our ancestry, because of our race. Shortly after that, they came down with a curfew on all Japanese Americans on the West Coast. We were confined to our home from 7 p.m. at night until 6 a.m. in the morning. And then we discovered that our bank accounts were frozen. We didn't have access. We couldn't have access to our life savings or even the money we needed to meet daily expenses. We were financially paralyzed. And then on February 19, 1942, shortly after my 5th birthday, President of the United States, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, signed Executive Order 9066, which ordered that all Japanese Americans on the West Coast were to be summarily rounded up with no charges and therefore no trial, because you need to have charges to challenge in order to have a trial. The central pillar of our justice system, due process, simply disappeared. We were to be imprisoned in 10 barbed wire prison camps in some of the most hellish places in this country. The blistering hot desert of Arizona, the sultry swamps of southeastern Arkansas, the cold windswept high plains of Wyoming, Idaho, Utah, Colorado, and 2 of the most desolate places in California. I can never forget that one terrifying morning when my parents got me up very early, together with my siblings, my brother a year younger, and my baby sister, still not even a year old. They dressed us hurriedly, and my brother and I were told to wait in the living room while my parents did some packing in the bedroom. We were gazing out the front window, and we saw 2 soldiers with bayonets on their rifles, marching up our driveway. They stomped up the porch and banged on the door with their fists. My father answered it, and literally at gunpoint, with bayonets pointed at us, we were ordered out of our home on Garnett Street in Los Angeles. My father gave my brother and me little packages to carry, and we went out and stood on the driveway waiting for our mother to come out. When she emerged, she had our baby sister in one arm, a huge duffel bag in the other, and tears were streaming down both her cheeks. I will never be able to forget to erase that memory from my brain. It's seared in. We were taken from our home, put on trains with armed guards at both ends of each car as if we were criminals and transported 2/3 of the way across the country to a barbed wire prison camp in the swamps of Arkansas. I still remember those barbed wire fences. I remember the tall sentry tower with the machine guns pointed at us. I remember the searchlight that followed me when I made the night runs from our barrack to the latrine. For my parents, that was an invasive, painful, degrading light. But to 5-year-old me, I thought it was nice that they lit the way for me to pee. Children are amazingly adaptable. What would be grotesquely abnormal under normal times became my normality behind those barbed wire fences. It became routine for me to line up 3 times a day to eat lousy food in a noisy mess hall. It became normal for me to go with my father to bathe in a mass shower. And it became routine for me to go to school in a black tar paper barrack and begin the school day with a pledge of allegiance to the flag. I could see the barbed wire fence and the sentry tower right outside my schoolhouse window as I recited the words, "With liberty and justice for all." An innocent child, just reciting the words the teacher taught him, not understanding the stinging irony in those words, liberty and justice for all. A year into imprisonment, the government realized that there's a wartime manpower shortage in the military. And here were all these young people that they had accused of being potential enemies, non-aliens. How to draft them after a year of imprisonment? How to justify drafting them? They came down with a very sloppily put together loyalty questionnaire, which had to be answered by everyone over the age of 17 in the camp. Most of the questions were innocuous questions, like, what was your last job? When did you move? But there were 2 questions that turned all 10 camps into turmoil and outrage. Question 27 asked, will you bear arms to defend the United States of America? This being asked of a 17-year-old young man as well as an 87-year-old immigrant lady. This old lady was expected to answer yes, bear arms to defend the nation that was imprisoning her. It was preposterous. Question 28 was even more insidious. It was one sentence with 2 conflicting ideas. It asked, will you swear your loyalty to the United States of America and forswear your loyalty to the Emperor of Japan? We're Americans. For the government to assume that there's an inborn racial, genetic loyalty to the emperor was insulting. It was outrageous. So if you answered, no, I don't have a loyalty to the emperor to forswear, that same no applied to the first part of the very same sentence. Will you swear your loyalty to the United States? If you answered yes, meaning I do swear my loyalty to the United States, then you were confessing that you had been loyal to the emperor and were now willing to forswear, set aside that previous loyalty and repledge your loyalty to the United States. It was an outrageous, really irrational question. The amazing thing is thousands of young Japanese men and women bit the bullet, swallowed the bitter taste, and answered those 2 questions the way the government wanted them to, with 2 yeses. And they went from behind those barbed wire fences to serve in the U.S. military. The women were put into the WACS, the Women's Army Corps. The men were put into a segregated all-Japanese American unit, the 442nd Regimental Combat Team. They were sent out to the battlefields of Europe and ordered out on the most dangerous missions. And they fought with incredible courage, incredible valor, heroic fighting men. They sustained the highest combat casualty rate of any other unit. And when the war ended, they came back as the single most decorated unit of the entire Second World War. They were amazing heroes. They were welcomed back to the United States on the White House lawn by President Harry Truman, who said to them, "You fought not only the enemy, but prejudice, and you won." They are my heroes, and I owe this America today to those incredible young men. But I have another set of heroes. They were the young men who said, when presented with the loyalty questionnaire, "I'm an American, and I will fight for my country, but I will fight as an American. If I can report to my hometown draft board with my family back home, I have a reason to fight for this country. I will fight as an American, but I will not go as an internee to put on the same uniform as that of the sentries guarding over us and leaving my family in imprisonment behind these barbed wire fences. I will fight as an American." They were strong, proud, young Americans. It was a gutsy stance. It was a principled stance. It was an American stance. And for that, they were tried for draft evasion, found guilty, and transferred from an internment camp to the federal penitentiary, most of them to Leavenworth. And they fought for justice and American ideals as well on the battlefield of hard time in a federal penitentiary. And I'm proud of them, and they too are my heroes. The war ended, and the gates of the prison camps were thrown open, just like that. We were free to go anywhere in the United States. But we were penniless, destitute. They had taken everything from us: our home, our parents' business, our freedom. And now, with the war ended, we were free. They gave us a one-way ticket to anywhere in the United States and $20 to begin our new life. My parents decided to come back to Los Angeles, but it was still a very cold, hostile city. Housing was impossible. Jobs were very difficult to get. Our first home back in Los Angeles was on Skid Row in downtown Los Angeles. And for us kids, it was a terrifying experience. The scent of human urine everywhere, on the sidewalk, in the hallways, in the alleyways, all over the place. And scary, smelly, ugly people squatting on the steps or leaning on the wall. One day we were walking down the sidewalk as a family, and this derelict came staggering right toward us, and we froze. And he, just about when he got to us, he collapsed and he barfed right in front of us. My baby sister, who was now 4 years old, shrieked, "Mama, let's go back home," behind barbed wire fences, because that was better than coming back to Los Angeles. For 5 years, my parents worked day and night, working their fingers to the bones, from one business to another. My father's first job, because he spoke Japanese and English, he helped the older people find jobs. And the jobs he could find for them were jobs like janitor, dishwasher, gardener, which paid a pittance. And he got a small fraction of that as his fee. And my mother made him quit because we couldn't afford to live on that small fee that my father collected. He opened a dry cleaning shop, and then later he opened a grocery store in the Watts area of Los Angeles. And they worked hard and saved their money, and I'm still amazed, but they were able to buy a 3-bedroom home in the Wilshire district of Los Angeles, a very nice district, after 5 years being freed. I owe so much to my parents, but I owed even more to them because when I became a teenager, I started reading civics books, and I started to understand those noble ideas of our democracy. And I couldn't reconcile that with what I knew to be my childhood imprisonment. And so I had many long discussions with my father after dinner. And I learned about American democracy from a man who lost everything, was humiliated, degraded, impoverished. And yet he was able to tell me that our democracy is a people's democracy. And the people have the capacity to do great things, like those noble ideas of democracy. But people are also fallible human beings, and they can make horrible mistakes. Our democracy is vitally dependent on good people who actively engage in the process of democracy, sometimes holding democracy's feet to the fire. And one Sunday afternoon, he took me downtown to the Adlai Stevenson for President headquarters. And he'd like to tell his friends that we volunteered. But I just tagged along. He volunteered me. And I, for the first time, understood the workings of our democracy. It is a people's democracy. There I was working together with other passionate people dedicated to electing this great man, Governor Adlai Stevenson of Illinois. He was an inspiring man, and he did a great job in Illinois. And so I spent day and night there in that headquarters, stuffing envelopes, making phone calls, leafleting on the sidewalk. And from that moment on, I became an activist in the political process, one campaign after another. I also became active in social justice campaigns. I was involved in the civil rights movement, and I marched with Dr. Martin Luther King, met him, shook his hand, and had a brief conversation with him. And I still remember the feeling that I got, the energy that extended into me from Dr. King's hands. And then during the Vietnam War, I was a part of the peace movement. I joined a Hollywood organization. By this time, I was pursuing an acting career. And we advocated for peace. And we did make progress. And I know that activism and engagement with the democratic process is the way that democracy flourishes. In fact, it's dependent on people who give of themselves. And I'm grateful to the people who spoke here, the elected officials, that are actively engaged in the process. And in the brief time that I've been here, I've seen and experienced and met the people of this city, Roanoke. And I've seen the diversity and certainly the work of the local colors people. I met Pearl Fu last night, had dinner with her, the founding member of local colors. And actually, this is not my first visit. I was here before in the 70s for, what else? A Star Trek convention. As a matter of fact, I'm told, I don't remember, but Jay Saunders tells me that he was there at that convention as a little kid. And so I have that early connection with Roanoke. And now I see both the Star Trek convention that I celebrated here and this visit as being just like the Starship Enterprise. The Starship Enterprise was a metaphor for Starship Earth, and the strength of the starship lay in the diversity of this planet coming together and working in concert. People from all over, North America, Europe, Africa, Asia, all over working in concert, and to really underscore the diversity, and not just as racial or cultural, but political. We had, during the time of the Cold War, the coldest time, we had a trusted member of our team named Pavel Chekhov, who spoke with a Russian accent. By the 23rd century, we will have overcome even our political differences. And to really underscore diversity, we had as our first officer not a biracial person, but a bi-species person. Spock. His mother was an Earthwoman. His father was from the planet Vulcan. He had pointy ears, green blood, and no sense of humor. He was supremely logical. And that diversity, working together in concert, even by species, and that's the kind of utopian society that we should have as our goal. And I see that here in this city of Roanoke, and certainly having met Mayor Bowers. I just gave him an advance to the governor's office. I know that he has a good heart and an open, accepting, welcoming spirit. And I see what we had as our motto on Star Trek here, vivid and alive. Infinite diversity in infinite combination. And may that infinite combination and infinite diversity here in Roanoke live long and prosper. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Bruce. Don't go anywhere now. No, I'm not saying here. Let's do it again. Big round of applause for Mr. George Takei. We know that you have traveled a great distance to be with here tonight, and we are very grateful that you've come to visit us. Thank you. As promised, Mr. Takei will be taking questions from the audience. But before we do that, we are delighted that our Honorable Mayor David Bowers is also here tonight. Mayor Bowers, would you and Mr. Takei both please come up to the podium here? Mr. Bowers, here's Honorable Mayor David Bowers. Here he is. Thank you.
Can you give them another one of these? Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening. George Takei has told you about a couple visits to Roanoke. I want to tell you about the 3 visits to Roanoke by George Takei. The first is when he came, as he indicated, as Mr. Sulu from that famous TV show and the movies, Star Trek. Do it. There you go. He can't see you, but can you give him one of these hellos back? Oh, you can. That was the first visit to Roanoke. The second visit to Roanoke Well, let's face it, I had something to do with that. And my comments back in November, which I thought were respectful and moderate, were nonetheless not received that way, and I have come to realize how mistaken those and inappropriate those comments were. And to the extent that those comments impacted my good reputation for being a friendly mayor, that was hurtful to me. I did it myself, and I was sorry for that. To the extent that those comments impacted the fine reputation of our great city of Roanoke, I am truly sorry. And I promised then, I intend to continue to make amends for those remarks. And I want you to know your presentation tonight was very special to me and my wife, Margarita, and I am enlightened. I did not know some of the things you've shared with us. So thank you for being here on his second visit to Roanoke. So I want to just share with you then the third visit. You don't know about this yet. We invite George Takei to come back to Roanoke again. But it won't be as Star Trek. It won't be as a result of some comments the mayor inappropriately made. It will be because of you, the people of Roanoke, and he's told you that. And I saw it today when I visited with him. By the way, we took a trek to our star today up on Mill Mountain. And George told me about his visit here yesterday, meeting Pearl Fu and the Diversity Council and the folks at Local Colors. And today up at the Star, he met many visitors who were visiting Roanoke from Germany and West Virginia and Pennsylvania and other places. And meeting with Roanokers today, Roanokers of all neighborhoods, Roanokers, rich and poor, white and black, and of all the different nationalities of our community, totaling now 105 different nationalities. Pearl, am I right? Is it 105? And, you know, she's always correcting me. And so I want to say to you, George, that we invite you to come back, but I want to say to you, people of Roanoke, you are the reason George Takei will come back on his third visit, because you, and by being here tonight, are demonstrating your genuine concern, your heartfelt support for this great city. We are a friendly city. We are a welcoming city. We are a progressive city. We are a city of over 105 nationalities, and we are a 6-time All-American city, the only city in America to have achieved that most prestigious award. George will come back because of you. I saw in the audience tonight Vice Mayor Trinkle. I cannot see into the audience. The lights are bright, but the Vice Mayor, the current Vice Mayor, is here, and you were already introduced to the Vice Mayor-elect Anita Price. Congratulations on your election. Councilman Bill Bestpitch is here. Delegate Sam Rasool. City Manager Chris Morrow. Mayor Ron Rordam came from Blacksburg up here to visit with us today. Our U.S. Attorney John Fishwick, appointed by the President just recently. Brenda Hale of the NAACP. And one more time, because she does love attention, the Ambassador of Goodwill for Roanoke, Pearl Fu. Love you, Pearl. No. So, George, if you'll join me now at the podium. George, if you'll join me at the podium. And ladies and gentlemen of Roanoke, on this very special occasion, in appreciation for the wonderful message, the enlightening message that you brought, and a message of hope and celebration of diversity for our great country and our great community, will you please now rise as I present to George Takei the highest honor of the city of Roanoke, the key to the city of Roanoke.
This is an oh my. My cup runneth over. I mean, I thought my cup was full already, and then I have the latchkey to every door in this city. Thank you, Mayor Bars, and thank you all, the people of Roanoke, for this unimagined, incredible honor, this key that opens so many hearts. Thank you so much.